In February 2026, a French teacher gave her students a routine assignment. She asked them to list the first things that came to mind when they thought of various English-speaking countries. For the United Kingdom, the responses were largely centered on tradition and pop culture. The students wrote down tea, fish and chips, Mr. Bean, and the Queen. The rest of the board followed a similar pattern. Canada was associated with maple syrup and hockey. Ireland brought up leprechauns and rain. Australia was defined by kangaroos, spiders, and surfing. These associations are the result of decades of soft power. These nations have successfully projected a version of themselves that is distinct, culturally recognizable, and generally harmless to the rest of the world. Then the class moved to the United States, and the very first word they put on the board was Epstein. The list quickly shifted from cultural quirks to systemic failures. The students wrote down fat, guns, lack of education, and healthcare. They also included specific political and law enforcement entities, adding Trump and ICE to the chalkboard. Out of the entire column, only two terms, Far West and trucks, carried no inherent social or political weight. While other nations were viewed through the lens of history and geography, the students view America through the lens of its internal friction. It suggests that the country's most prominent global export is no longer its culture, but its crises. These students are part of a generation that is constantly plugged into American digital ecosystems. They consume the news, the controversies, and the viral moments of US life in real time through their social media feeds. These answers weren't born from a specific anti-American curriculum or propaganda. They were simply a reflection of what appears on their screens every day. Historically, America controlled its global image through the export of scientific triumphs, high-budget cinema, and the promise of the American dream. In the current era, those aspirational stories are often crowded out by headlines detailing mass shootings, political instability, and civil unrest. In a hyper-connected world, a nation cannot hide its internal struggles. The unedited reality of domestic trauma has become a primary component of America's global brand. When the image of the chalkboard reached Reddit, it went viral almost instantly. Within days, it had moved across TikTok and Twitter, generating millions of views and tens of thousands of comments. On conservative news networks and social media circles, the reaction was one of immediate defense. The list was frequently characterized as an insult from an ungrateful ally. Elsewhere, the reaction was more somber. Many Americans, particularly younger ones, saw the list as a painful but accurate assessment of the country they live in. The list became a cultural Rorschach test, leading to completely diverging conclusions based on existing political perspectives. When aggregated, the divide is quantifiable. 45% reacted with anger, while 30% showed reflection or self-assessment. The viral moment eventually stopped being about how the world sees America and became another opportunity for Americans to litigate their own internal divisions. Looking at the board again, every term the students chose, from the specifics of the Epstein case to the broader issues of gun violence and healthcare, corresponds to a verifiable, headline-making reality in American life. This creates a friction between the country America wants to be, one defined by its natural wonders and founding ideals, and the country that is actually being observed by the rest of the world. A nation's global reputation is a byproduct of its internal health. Soft power is earned through consistent stability, not historical momentum. Eventually, the internet moved on to the next controversy. The physical chalkboard in that French classroom was wiped clean, and the students moved on to their next lesson. If America wants the world to return to a list of aspirational associations, it must first address the realities that put those darker words on the board in the first place. Epstein, guns, education, healthcare, Trump. 5 words with no obvious connection. Yet, in early 2026, they appeared together on a single chalkboard. This list originated in a middle school classroom in France. As part of a geography exercise, a teacher asked the students to write down the first things they associated with the United States. This was their collective response. When the image reached the American Almanac, the response was immediate and defensive. Critics argued the students were simply repeating talking points from social media algorithms designed to highlight American flaws. But there is a different way to view the list. It is possible that these students inadvertently drafted a data-backed summary of how the United States functions today. This exercise documents a shift in perception. It suggests that for a new generation of observers, the traits defining the American experience have changed. While previous generations associated America with cultural exports like film or technology, this list suggests a new primary association: elite impunity. That perception begins with the first word on the board. Jeffrey Epstein was a financier convicted of sex crimes involving minors. He died in federal custody in 2019, leaving behind a series of unresolved questions regarding how he operated for decades. His social and professional circles included many of the most powerful individuals in American life. To the global public, the lack of subsequent high-profile investigations into that network suggested a system where the wealthy remain untouchable. This perception of a two-tiered system of justice links directly to the final word on the list: Donald Trump. During his time in the spotlight, international audiences followed a constant cycle of impeachments, criminal indictments, and civil trials. As these events unfolded, citizens in allied countries often responded with public protests and mockery, viewing the American political process as a source of global instability. For these students, these figures serve as proof of a legal system that protects the influential and a political culture that appears to be losing its traditional norms. The word guns addresses America's position as a statistical outlier. Among developed nations, the United States is the only country where mass shootings are a frequent, routine occurrence. This violence has become a standard feature of the American school experience, where children practice active shooter drills alongside their regular curriculum. Foreign observers see the repetitive cycle of massacres and memorials and conclude that the country has accepted this level of violence as an inevitable cost. This chart shows gun deaths per 100,000 people. The US rate is 12.21. In France, that number is 2.7. The statistical gap between America and its allies is vast. The inclusion of guns on the chalkboard is a reaction of horror. It reflects the view of a world watching a country that appears to prioritize firearm access over the lives of its citizens. The words education and healthcare highlight a financial paradox. Per capita, the United States spends more on these two sectors than almost any other nation. Despite that spending, American students often face underfunded primary schools and graduate from universities with a debt burden that takes decades to repay. The healthcare system follows a similar pattern. While the U.S. spends nearly $13,000 per person annually, millions of Americans rely on public donations to pay for life-saving procedures. This has led to a reality where medical debt is the primary driver of personal bankruptcy in the United States, a situation that is virtually unknown in other wealthy nations. To students raised with universal coverage and low-cost tuition, the American system looks like a marketplace where survival and knowledge are commodities rather than rights. The associations made by this single classroom in France are not an isolated incident. They reflect a broader trend in how the United States is viewed globally. This Pew Research Center data shows a sharp decline in favorability toward the United States across allied nations in 2025. The drop is most visible in neighboring countries, a 32-point decline in Mexico, 20 points in Canada, and 15 points in France. These figures suggest the French students were not outliers. Their list aligns with the prevailing opinion found in 15 different countries surveyed. The chalkboard recorded the specific areas where American reality has diverged most sharply from the expectations of the rest of the world. The viral post eventually faded, and the physical chalkboard was erased. But while the image disappeared, the conditions that created the list remain. The question is whether the systems that made this list accurate will change, or if the next generation will write the exact same words.